Last time on The Silent Bond, the line between truth and lies has blurred. Sakura Haruno walks with friends at her side, but she knows better than anyone. Even allies can become obstacles. The academy is shifting. So is the village. Anbu begin to whisper. Root tightens its grip, and the Sharingan is watching. As motives twist and loyalties fray, one thing becomes clear. To survive, Sakura must stay ahead of everyone, even herself. Welcome to Riow Stories. If you're enjoying this journey, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Your support means everything. Let's get into Chapter 20 of The Silent Bond, reincarnated as Sakura Haruno. Chapter 20, Bonds of Friendship. Day 21121, Year 7. It still amazes me how quickly something can go from uncertain to irreplaceable. When I first arrived in this world, I thought I'd be alone, pretending my way through it all. But now, here I am, walking home from the training grounds with Naruto, Hinata, and Sasuke like it's the most natural thing in the world. And yet, there's still that feeling, that tug in the air. Danzo's eyes. I sense him even when I don't see him, a constant shadow at the edge of my awareness. I don't know what game he's playing yet, but I know this. I won't let it reach them. Not Naruto, not Hinata, not Sasuke. Whatever this life becomes, these bonds are mine, and I will protect them. The late afternoon sun filtered through the trees as the four of us stood in a loose circle on the training grounds, chests heaving from exertion. The grass was torn and scattered with shuriken and scuffed footprints, but the fading light cast it all in a golden peace. Naruto was still bouncing on his toes, punching at the air as if the battle hadn't already ended 15 minutes ago. Come on! I was just getting warmed up. Warmed up? I asked, hands on my hips. You've been throwing yourself around like a sugar-crazed raccoon dog for the last hour. Hinata giggled quietly behind me, covering her mouth with the sleeve of her jacket. She wasn't even winded, but her cheeks were pink, maybe from the workout, maybe from the way she kept glancing shyly at Naruto. Sasuke leaned against the trunk of a tree nearby, arms crossed, eyes closed. At first glance, he looked calm, but I could feel it in his chakra, still simmering, still alert. He was always quietly testing his limits, even in rest. You're not wrong, Sasuke muttered, eyes still closed. He's basically a hyperactive puppy. Hey! Naruto shouted. Don't gang up on me. I raised an eyebrow. Sasuke's right for once. Sasuke let out a quiet chuckle. Naruto turned a shade redder, fists clenched in mock outrage, while Hinata just smiled more. We started gathering our things, with packing away scrolls and weapons, wiping sweat from our faces with spare cloth. The wind picked up slightly, tugging at the trees, and I caught that familiar hum again. A subtle presence far beyond the clearing. Danzo. He wasn't close enough to see, but he was there. Watching. Listening. I could feel the pressure of his chakra like a sharp edge held just out of reach. I didn't say anything. I just tightened my grip on my pack and forced a smile. Okay, I said brightly. Training's over. We've earned dinner. What do you say? Naruto lit up instantly. Ichiraku, I've been dreaming about miso pork since lunch. Hinata nodded shyly. It sounds good. Sasuke gave a small nod. Fine by me. Great, I said. Let's go. The walk through the village was light, our voices rising above the crowd. Naruto recounted some wild, half-true story about his latest prank on Iruka-sensei, while Hinata listened with a mixture of awe and concern. Sasuke remained quiet and walking beside me in silence, but I could feel him watching, even when he didn't speak. And even as we laughed, my senses kept flicking outward, searching. The pressure from earlier had eased, but I didn't trust it. Root didn't make mistakes, and Danzo didn't waste time. If he was retreating, it was because he'd already decided his next move. Still, I couldn't let them see that worry. Not now. Not when this moment mattered so much. The sun dipped low as we arrived at Ichiraku Ramen, its wooden sign swaying slightly in the breeze. Warm scents drifted from the open kitchen, soy broth, fresh noodles, and sizzling pork belly, and for a moment, everything felt perfectly normal. Touchy greeted us with his usual grin. My favorite customers, 4 bowls, coming right up. Naruto practically leapt onto his stool. Make mine a double. Hinata settled beside him, fidgeting slightly as she placed her order. I sat on Naruto's other side, and Sasuke took the last seat next to me, silent, calm, and somehow still drawing every curious glance from passersby. The air between us was easy now. We weren't just four classmates thrown together by circumstance anymore. We were something more. Four friends bound by training, loyalty, and long afternoons spent learning each other's strengths and flaws. As the bowls arrived and Naruto began devouring his food with loud slurps and content sighs, I caught Sasuke glancing at me, just briefly. "You're quiet," he said, voice low enough that only I could hear. I paused mid-bite, blinking at him. Just tired. But it wasn't a lie, not really. I was tired, not from training, but from the weight of what I wasn't saying. Danzo, Root. The surveillance I knew hadn't stopped. I felt their eyes on me even now, lingering somewhere beyond the veil of the market crowds. "You're always thinking," Sasuke said after a moment. "You don't need to carry everything alone." I looked at him, heart skipping. "I'm not. You are." There was no judgment in his voice, just quiet observation. Sasuke had a way of seeing things that others missed, not through words, but through silence. It was what made him dangerous and what made him trustworthy. I gave him a small, tired smile. "I'll be okay." "You better be." Naruto cut in suddenly, having clearly only caught part of the conversation. "You're the one who keeps us from falling apart." Sasuke snorted. "You mean she keeps you from falling apart?" "Hey," Naruto shouted, waving his chopsticks wildly. "I keep this team running." Hinata giggled quietly, hiding her smile behind her sleeve. I shook my head, laughing with them, but I kept my sensory focus active in the background, just in case. Later that evening, after the last bowls were empty and the sky had turned a soft violet, we left Ichiraku and began walking home together. The village was quieter now, the lanterns casting long shadows over the cobblestone streets. "Tomorrow," Naruto said, stretching with a loud yawn, "we train again. I'm gonna beat you, Sasuke." "Keep dreaming," Sasuke muttered. Hinata's smile lingered even as she hugged her arms to her chest. "You're all working so hard." "You are too, Hinata," I said, nudging her gently. "You've improved a lot." She blushed. "Oh, only because I have such strong friends." Sasuke slowed his pace slightly as we neared the split in the road, the place where we would each head off in different directions to go home. Then, just before I turned down my own path, he spoke again. "Thanks, Sakura." I turned confused. "For what?" He glanced at Naruto and Hinata, who had already walked ahead, then looked back at me. "For holding this together." I stared at him for a second, stunned. It was rare for Sasuke to give compliments, rarer still to show gratitude. But before I could say anything, he was gone, turning to follow the others down the road. I stood there, watching their backs disappear into the soft glow of lantern light, and for the first time that day, the tension in my chest eased. Sakura's Diary, Day 121, Year 7. They don't know yet. About Root, about Danzo, about how close the shadows are to catching our light. But Sasuke sees more than he says. Hinata senses more than she speaks. And Naruto? He holds us together through sheer force of spirit. Maybe that's what it means to have a team, not one built by mission assignments, but one chosen, piece by piece, moment by moment. Even if the world turns against us, I won't let them fall. The night had settled by the time I returned home, the kind of quiet that let my thoughts stretch out and breathe. I washed up, gave my parents a quick good night, and retreated to my room, the window cracked just enough to let in the sound of rustling leaves. I sat at my desk, letting the events of the day settle in my mind. Training, laughter, Sasuke's quiet thanks, and the feeling of being watched. I knew the moment I entered the compound that someone had trailed us. They hadn't approached, no intent to harm, just observing. Again, I opened the drawer of my desk and reached for a thin scroll. Not one of my official academy assignments. This one was personal. A journal of chakra impressions, surveillance patterns, and possible observation points. I had no proof. Not yet. But instinct whispered what I already knew. Danzo was still watching. Root Command Center, Briefing Annex. Danzo stood alone in the darkened chamber, a single candle flickering beside the carved stone dais. The latest reports lay open in front of him. Kuro 11's surveillance notes. Lizard's failed tag deployment. A chart of chakra inconsistencies, timelines, cross-reference paths, and signature irregularities that made no sense when held side by side. A pattern that shouldn't exist, but did. "She is aware," he murmured again. "Not wild, not chaotic, not unstable, controlled." "Contact protocols remain suspended," he said aloud, as if to the darkness itself. But no one answered. There were no agents in the chamber, no movement, no footsteps. Danzo narrowed his eyes. He already knew why. Hokage's office, official record. Sarutobi Hiruzen adjusted the clasp on his robe and pressed the seal of the third Hokage onto the scroll before him. The message was clear, coded, but unambiguous. Subject Haruno Sakura. Further direct surveillance operations by independent departments, root or otherwise, are suspended until reviewed by Anbu Command. The girl remains under passive Konoha protection. She is not to be classified under threat protocol unless formally breached. Signed, Sarutobi Hiruzen, Hokage of the Hidden Leaf. He set the scroll aside, lips pursed. Let's hope, he murmured, she never gives them a reason to question this decision. Anbu Watch Point, tower perched dusk. Kakashi stood on the high ridge of the Hokage monument, arms crossed, face unreadable beneath his mask. He watched the village below as the last of the sunlight dipped behind the rooftops. Sakura's chakra was faint now, moving through a civilian path on her way home. Nothing flashy, nothing excessive, barely noticeable at all. To Root, it would look like nothing. But Kakashi knew better. She's not hiding, he said aloud to the wind. She's choosing. He tapped a finger to his wristband, once lightly, then turned and vanished. Outside academy walls late evening, Naruto leaned back against the outer wall of the academy, arms behind his head, his breath forming small puffs in the cool night air. He wasn't waiting for anyone. Not really. But somehow he always ended up here after a long day, as if some part of him wanted to make sure nothing had changed. She's been quiet again, he muttered. Not just tired, not just distracted. It's something else. He stared at the stars. I hope she tells us when she's ready. Chapter 21, Whispers in the Dark, Sakura's Diary, Day 20121, Year 7. Danzo's eyes are always watching. Even when I can't see them, I feel them, lurking at the edge of my senses like a flicker of breath on the back of my neck. Sometimes I think he's waiting for me to slip, but I won't. Not now. Not when I've come this far. I've learned to hide my chakra the way others learn to breathe. I've learned to smile when I'm being studied and laugh when I'm being tested. And I've learned that even in Konoha, the village I call home, truth and danger walk hand in hand. If I have to become something new to protect them, I will, even if it means becoming something I no longer recognize in the mirror. The late evening shadows stretched long across the rooftops as I walked home, the sky painted in fading hues of lavender and amber. My bag was slung over one shoulder, scrolls tucked neatly inside, but my mind was elsewhere. Training had gone well. Naruto had actually landed a hit on Sasuke, accidentally, but still a hit. Hinata's chakra flared stronger than usual, showing the edge of a confidence I'd only begun to see. It was a quiet, content moment for our little group. But now that the sun had dipped and the chatter of the day had faded, the stillness returned, and with it, the feeling. I wasn't alone. I paused near the bridge that arched over the small stream running through the neighborhood. My footsteps slowed. My chakra reached out. There, a flicker, too faint for most to notice. A presence nestled beyond the tree line, barely within range, watching, waiting. Not aggressive, not intrusive, yet familiar in a way that made my stomach knot. Danzo's shadows, again. They'd become more frequent lately, more blatant. I didn't know if it was paranoia or precision that drove him, but I knew what he saw in me, an anomaly and a threat. I turned my path down a quieter road and quickened my pace, moving through familiar alleys and across rooftops until I reached the Haruno household. I entered without looking back. The door slid shut behind me with a gentle click, and I pressed my palm against the seal tag hidden in the corner of the doorframe. A pulse, a soft hum. The chakra in my perimeter seals flared briefly, still intact, still untriggered. Good. Upstairs in the quiet of my room, I lit the small lamp on my desk and unrolled the scrolls I tucked into my bag. My hands moved with practiced precision, reaching for ink, brush, and the worn sealing journal I had built page by page over the past few years. The seal in front of me was new, experimental, a layering of chakra masking and passive dispersion, meant to hide my chakra signature without alerting any sensory-type shinobi to the effort. No flickers, no flares, just silence. If it worked, if it failed, Root wouldn't hesitate to tighten their grip. My eyes scanned the seal diagram again. Stroke by stroke, I began to trace it, layering each line with chakra. Focus, breathe, ink meets paper, chakra meets ink. the language of sealing, unspoken and precise. But as my brush paused over the final symbol, my thoughts slipped again, to the moment beneath the Sakura tree, to Sasuke's quiet thanks after training, to the brief look in his eyes before he turned away. We hadn't spoken about it, not directly, but I could feel the change. He trusted me, and there was more there, something quiet and unspoken, buried beneath years of pride and pain, and part of me wanted to reach for it, but I couldn't. Not yet. Not while we were still being watched. The creak of footsteps outside my window jolted me back into the present. My chakra flared instinctively, senses reaching out. But what I found surprised me. It wasn't Danzo's men this time. I rose to my feet, moving quietly to the window. I slid it open and peered into the street, lit faintly by the glow of the street lamps. And there he was, standing beneath the swaying shadow of the lamppost, his cloak rustling in the wind. Was Itachi Uchiha. Day 2122? Itachi's warning didn't feel like a conversation. It felt like a test. Not just of awareness, but of resolve. He didn't tell me anything I didn't already suspect. But hearing it from him, it solidified something. A quiet line drawn in the dark. If the academy is a place for learning jutsu, then this village is a place for learning how to navigate danger. And most of it doesn't wear a forehead protector. I'm not afraid, but I am watching, just like they are. Uchiha compound, late afternoon training. Sasuke moved differently today. It wasn't his form. His movements were sharp, efficient, and fast as ever. But something in the rhythm had changed. He was holding back less. There was weight behind each strike, like he was chasing something just out of reach. Naruto was keeping up for once, though more through stubbornness than strategy. His chakra surged wild and hot each time he lunged, his laughter masking the strain. Whoa, okay. Naruto yelped, narrowly avoiding a kunai to the shoulder. You trying to take my arm off, Sasuke? You said you wanted a real match, Sasuke replied coolly, retrieving his weapon with an effortless flick of his wrist. Naruto grinned. Yeah, but I didn't say I wanted to die. Mikoto chuckled from her spot beneath the tree, where she'd laid out cold tea and mochi. Hinata and I sat beside her, watching the boys spar. The shade offered little relief from the heat, but the company was comforting. Sasuke's more serious than usual, Hinata murmured, fidgeting slightly as she watched. I nodded. He's trying to get ahead of something, but I'm not sure he knows what. Hinata glanced at me with quiet concern. Do you? I paused. Maybe. Evening, returned to the village. By the time we left the compound, the sun was bleeding into the horizon, painting the rooftops in orange and gold. Naruto was still animated, bouncing between Hinata and Sasuke as we walked back toward the center of the village. But I stayed quiet. Something had shifted in the space between our footsteps. A ripple I could feel through my senses. Small, subtle, but growing. Not just Danzo's agents. Not just suspicion. A pressure. Like something waiting to break. I glanced at Sasuke beside me. His face was calm, but I could sense the storm beneath it. He wasn't the only one preparing. Haruno residence nightfall. The seals activated the moment I crossed the threshold. Faint blue light shimmered through the kanji-marked walls before vanishing again. No intrusions. No lingering chakra signatures. Safe. For now. My parents were out again. Another dinner party, another excuse not to ask where I'd been. I was grateful, honestly. Their absence gave me space to be who I needed to be. I stepped into my room and unrolled the scroll I'd started 2 nights ago. The chakra masking seal. Still incomplete, but closer. I adjusted 2 strokes, then paused, hand hovering over the ink. Itachi's warning echoed in my head. There are people who would use your friendship with Sasuke to hurt him. Not if I get to them first. I pressed my fingers to the edge of the parchment, focusing until my chakra laced through the seal with careful precision. The ink shimmered briefly, then settled. The pulse of the signature vanished. It worked. At least it would work for a short time, enough to hide, enough to move unnoticed if I needed to. My heart pounded, not from fear but clarity. I wasn't just protecting my friends anymore. I was preparing for the day I might have to protect them from the very village they served. Outside, academy wall dusk again. The streets were empty now, lamps flickering along the paths like tired sentries. The moon hung high, veiled behind clouds. Still I walked, not to get somewhere, but to feel the air move, to listen. Danzo's presence didn't haunt the corners tonight, but something else did. Not surveillance, not suspicion, silence. A type of silence that felt unnatural, too still, too watchful, like the village itself was holding its breath. I didn't look up when I passed the alleyway near the old bookstore, but I felt it, chakra pressed tight into stone, hidden. Another root operative, probably, or something worse. I kept walking. Sakura's diary, day 2123, year 7. There's something cold waiting under Konoha's surface. I can feel it pressing up through the soil, through the walls, through the eyes of men like Danzo who speak of peace but dream of obedience. And yet we train. We laugh. We walk to Ichiraku like everything is fine. But my seals are getting stronger, my chakra sharper, and my resolve, it's not just mine anymore, it belongs to them too, to Naruto, to Sasuke. If the darkness comes for us, I won't let it win. Chapter 22. Sakura's diary, day 124, year 7. Something has shifted again. It's subtle, like the moment right before a storm, when the air turns thick and the wind pauses mid-breath. Itachi's warning hasn't left my thoughts, not even for a second. I've started paying closer attention to the way people move around me, to the spaces between words. Danzo's watchers are still there, just outside the edges of my perception. I pretend not to notice. I act normal, laugh with Naruto, spar with Sasuke, study with Hinata, but my senses are always stretched thin, tuned for the slightest ripple. And within the Uchiha compound, something else brews. I don't know what it is yet, but I can feel the threads tightening, and I can't protect anyone if I don't understand what we're walking into. The Uchiha compound had become a second home over the past few months, but today it felt different. Sasuke and I faced off in the training yard as Naruto cheered from the edge, already out of breath from his match with Hinata. The cool stone beneath our feet radiated warmth from the late afternoon sun, and the faint scent of sakura leaves lingered in the air. Sasuke's stance was calm, precise, his expression unreadable. I moved to match his rhythm, dodging low and stepping into a strike. Our movements flowed like water, the crack of chakra echoing softly with every controlled exchange. Eventually, our spar wound down, and we rejoined the others near the shaded edge of the courtyard, collapsing into shared silence. Naruto chattered between mouthfuls of snack cakes Mikoto had left out for us, Hinata's soft laughter bubbling quietly at his side. For a moment, it felt like things were normal again. Then the shoji door slid open with the faintest creak, and everything shifted. Fugaku Uchiha stepped out into the courtyard, his presence heavy as always. Silence followed him like a shadow. Even Naruto stopped mid-chew. "Sasuke," Fugaku said, voice deep and commanding. "Itachi and I need a word." Sasuke didn't hesitate. He stood, expression tightening with something unreadable. "Yes, father." But before he could follow, Mikoto emerged behind him, her soft voice floating over the tension like wind across water. "Sakura, Naruto, Hinata, won't you stay for dinner?" Naruto's face lit up. "Really? Thank you, Mikoto-san." I smiled, though the cold glance from Fugaku hadn't gone unnoticed. "Thank you," I said politely, "but we should probably head home." Mikoto didn't press us. "Of course, you're always welcome." Sasuke disappeared into the house behind his father, and I watched the door slide closed with a strange tightness in my chest. Something about Fugaku's voice, the sharpness in his gaze, it reminded me that as much as I'd grown close to this family, I was still standing on the edge of something deeper and darker. We left the Uchiha compound quietly. The sky had deepened into twilight, the shadows of the rooftops stretching long across the village streets. For once, Naruto didn't talk much. He walked beside me with his hands laced behind his head, brow furrowed, not angry, not tired, just thoughtful. Hinata stayed close, her fingers twisting gently in the hem of her sleeves. She hadn't spoken since we left. And me? I couldn't stop replaying the look Sasuke gave me right before disappearing behind that door. Detached, guarded, almost like he was bracing for something. We turned down the main road toward the center of the village. The lanterns were just starting to flicker to life in the shop windows, bathing the stone in warm, golden light. "You okay, Sakura-chan?" Naruto finally asked. His voice wasn't his usual loud, boisterous tone. It was careful, measured. I nodded once. "Yeah, just thinking." He didn't press. He never did when it mattered. After a moment, he looked up at the sky, exhaling through his nose. It feels like something big is coming, doesn't it? I glanced at him, surprised by how in tune he sounded. You felt it too? Yeah, he admitted, like there's this pressure building up, like the village is holding its breath. Hinata nodded softly. I've been sensing it too. Their words made my chest tighten. It wasn't just me. Whatever was happening inside the Uchiha compound, whatever Danzo was planning behind the scenes, it wasn't paranoia. The air really had changed. I'm worried about Sasuke, I said quietly, not meaning to speak the words aloud. But once they were out, they hung there between us. Naruto blinked and nodded, more serious than usual. Me too. Hinata didn't speak. But the concern in her pale eyes said enough. We reached the edge of the market square, the sounds of vendors closing down for the evening murmuring in the background. The three of us paused beneath a street lamp. I felt it again. That flicker. The briefest hum of chakra, masked and low. Watching. Danzo's men. They were always there, always just beyond the veil. I think someone's been watching me, I said, keeping my voice just above a whisper. Naruto stopped walking. Who? I hesitated. Then, softly, Danzo. His brows drew together instantly. That one-eyed warhawk? What does he want with you? I bit the inside of my cheek. I couldn't tell them everything. Not yet. Not until I was sure I could protect them from the blowback. Maybe it's because of who I spend time with, I said instead, trying to keep my tone light. Naruto, you're not exactly subtle. Naruto scratched his head sheepishly. Fair. But it's more than that, I continued. There's something happening in this village, something connected to the Uchiha. I don't know what it is yet, but I think Sasuke's right in the middle of it. Naruto and Hinata exchanged a glance. Do you think he knows? Hinata asked softly. I don't think so, but Itachi knows. He came to see me the other night. Both of them stared at me, eyes wide. What did he say? Naruto asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I folded my arms. That people are watching. That danger is coming, and that I need to protect Sasuke. Hinata's expression turned solemn. Naruto's fists clenched. You're not doing that alone, he said firmly. We've got your back, Sakura-chan. Hinata nodded. All of us do. For the first time that evening, I smiled. Whatever shadows were gathering around us, we'd face them together. Sakura's diary, day 2-125, year 7. Itachi's words haven't faded. Neither has the feeling that the walls around us are closing in. Every movement through the village feels watched. Every silence between footsteps, waited. But what scares me more than the shadows is what's beginning to grow in the light. The way Naruto stands a little taller now when he walks beside us. The way Hinata's eyes don't waver quite as much. The way Sasuke sometimes lingers behind, as if he's waiting for something or someone to remind him he's not alone. I've changed things. I know that much. But I don't know if I've changed enough. That night, I couldn't sleep. Even after parting ways with Naruto and Hinata, after promising we'd talk more tomorrow, after forcing myself to eat dinner and check my seals again and again, I still couldn't settle the unease. I sat at my desk, bathed in moonlight, tracing the edge of one of my oldest scrolls. The ink had faded, but the symbols were still sharp in my mind. It was the first chakra concealment seal I'd ever written. Sloppy, but functional. A reminder of how far I'd come, and how far I still had to go. My fingers hovered above a blank scroll for several minutes before I finally dipped my brush into the ink. Tonight, I wouldn't reinforce barriers. I wouldn't practice defensive arrays. Tonight, I wrote something new. A seal designed to trigger when touched by hostile chakra, a soft repulsion technique disguised as a fading ward. Subtle, silent, meant not to fight the shadow, but to refuse it entry entirely. It wouldn't stop Root, but it would delay them. And right now, time was what I needed most. Later, as I stepped out into the courtyard behind my house to clear my head, I sensed another presence, not masked, not Root, Sasuke. He sat alone on the low stone wall bordering the garden, arms resting on his knees, face tilted toward the sky. I hesitated in the doorway. You're out late. He didn't turn. Couldn't sleep. I crossed the yard slowly, sitting beside him without another word. The silence stretched between us, but it wasn't empty. The night hummed quietly with the sound of distant crickets and the soft rustle of trees. Finally, he spoke. My father's been different lately. Tense. Even Itachi seems distracted. I nodded, watching the shadows dance across the path. The clans under pressure, from inside and out. He looked at me then, his voice low. You know more than you're saying. It wasn't an accusation, just quiet certainty. I met his gaze. So do you. Something in his expression shifted, not anger, not fear, but something close to recognition. He didn't press me, just leaned back, exhaling through his nose. I don't know what's coming, but I don't want it to tear everything apart. It won't, I said. Not if we hold on to what matters. His eyes flicked toward me, and what matters? You, I answered before I could stop myself. Naruto, Hinata, this bond between us, it's real, and we can protect it. For a moment he didn't reply, but then softly, barely above a whisper, he said, I'm glad you're here. He stood then, offering no explanation, no goodbye, just walked into the night and disappeared around the edge of the house. I stayed there for a long time after he left, heart still racing. The shadows were growing, the village was shifting, but Sasuke had just shown me something rare. Not strength, not fire, trust, and I would not let that be lost. That's the end of it for now. My favorite part is next. Hope you enjoyed Riow.